Ooh. Hey, hey. Oh, oh. What's up, people? Welcome to the reading club, The Thinkers in English. How are you, man? I hope you are good, having an amazing day. I'm here just fixing here a thing. So, yeah, now there we go. I hope you are having an amazing day. Thank you for being here, and I hope you got value from this live stream. Today, unfortunately, Marisabel Fernandes is started a little bit. She has cancer and she was having chemotherapy, and she is doing the extra effort sometimes to be here participating in the English version of the club, because she participates always in the Portuguese version, and we are Portuguese people, me from Portugal, she from Brazil, and sometimes she repeats what we already said in the Portuguese version. Other times she is a little bit tired, so I am the one that is putting the effort here in the English stuff. And I am the founder, so it makes sense, right? Even though I founded this club influenced by her. At least the Portuguese version. The English version is all my fault. But I can tell you a little bit how it happened. So I was looking for a reading club for months. I checked from time to time reading clubs that I could enter here in Portugal. Never found one that fitted me. Meaning never found the one that was attaching the knowledge that I want to study and I want to be in. So yeah, I talked with Marisabel. Marisabel said, why don't we found our own? And I said, oh yeah, let's go do this. And then she asked, how we are going to do this, since you are the founder, you are the creator. She said, you are the creator, sorry. Oh, I am the creator, nice, thank you. We are going to do it on my channel, la, 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 la. It was fun. Okay, so let me translate and let's give it up for the intro. Welcome, thinkers. It's an honor to have you here. Person interested in thinking and in exploring the world of intellect, where the social barriers, they rise and disappear for a while, so we can travel in the world of knowledge without any end. You can interact and become a member for €5 a month, or making your questions, giving a tip. By becoming a member, you pay €10 a month, and it comes with diversified functionalities and rewards that you can have to enjoy. Or become a star and be a thinker. Welcome home, feel free and enjoy your trip. You can start by entering on the portal by looking at the mini dictionary that we have with terms that we use from time to time in the description of YouTube. Okay, so today I am going to continue with the book Men and His Symbols, even though we are going to talk a lot more than just men and his symbols. It's going to be very, 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 very interesting. I'm going to start with my own topics that I put it here, and then I will read the text from Marisabel. Is not how I have done in English. Yeah, in Portuguese. This is how I felt I should begin in English. Maybe not decided, but I decided. Okay. So my understanding on my reading of Carl Jung books, work, and after seeing and reading scholars talking about their work, I feel that this thought it is useful, makes sense. That the shadow that we have must be conscious all the time. Meaning it should be lightened up by our consciousness and identifying if there's a shadow working against us or with us or no, or if we are doing something out of the pure objective intent that we said we are going to do something. So for example, I can help someone by the sake of helping him, and I'm really helping him, or I am helping him because of the shadow that is working with me, that makes me want to feel that I help people and not helping them objectively, which is a really interesting distinction to make. And it can be hard on people to make that distinction, meaning if I am really doing that to help the other person, or if I'm doing really that to help me feeling the emotions that I want to feel, and to be able to say, oh, I helped that person, and not really be focusing on helping the other person and understanding them. So I think this is really useful to know. And we can see and notice that in the super protective mother. The super protective mother is so overprotecting the child. So there's a linear where it is messing with the child. It is not helpful for the child to be that overprotective, right? But until that threshold surpasses, it is really protection and it is nice and good. But normally, when we look at mothers that are overprotective, we say, oh my God, it loves their son so much. We say that socially here, at least in Portugal. I feel that most of the times. But it is not true love in some sense, because it is for the mother to satisfy his own pleasure of feeling that it is protecting that child and not really protecting that child. Meaning, protecting that child from their future benefit, right? So meaning, if the mother helps the child going out there, make some scars on their foot, on their leg, and go out and explore the world, and get humbled on by the world, well, the mother is helping the child to progress on their psychological maturity and to adapt to the world, instead of the mother, and even if that is causing suffering to the mother, all right? Because that's really true love, in my perspective, at least when the person is conscious and aware of it. Because if the mother is overprotecting the child just to feel it is protecting the child, well, then it is more the shadow that is acting there. So the reprimand of emotions and sentiments, emotions and feelings of the mother, that could appear of maybe I can and should let my son go out there to win some immunological system against the world, so he can become stronger, right? And we say, no, it's because I love him, it's because I protect him. So we suppress we suppress traits and emotions, and we put out this narrative that is to protect him. So to distinguish this shadow from the light, it is really hard. It can be really hard, especially because we cannot know if it is overprotection or if it is a protection that is useful. Of course, more information, more data, the more knowledge we have, the better it is, the better the distinguishments we can make, and the more we know. But until we get there, well, it is hard. That's why it is really interesting to study and be on these clubs, like the reading club, so we can get more proximate to what we are experiencing really. So I think that's really interesting to know. And I also think that the true leaders, they, of course, the better the leader, the more lighten up and more consciousness he has of his own shadow. So he can distinguish what I've said previously, if I'm doing this because of me or because I really want to help the other, truly, let's say, from the bottom of my mind. And as the leader does that, he can also see more easily the shadow that manifests in other persons, for example, collaborators that work with that leader, and he can meet them at their level and help them push forward in their psychological maturation and go to the next level of development. And we can do the parallel of something like the zone of proximal development in Vygotsky, right? Or the person can guide them so they can go and continue to their psychological growth, inspiring them, making good questions, so the person can have the good and best insights. I think this is a good thought, and I think this is true, right? Of course, it is, and it is happening a projection here, because the person, it is projecting, let's say, their own cognitions on the other person, but just because it is projection doesn't mean it is false or it is untruth. because I can only see in the other what I have in myself, and that it is for the good or the bad. If I don't have any construct of what is good, I cannot see the good in the other. I can only see evil, right? And at the end, we are all individuals that specifically behave in different ways, but we also have larger patterns that are equal and shared across all of us, right? So we all can make a pattern of some psychological type and say to our friends, do you know that type of person that... And you, oh, I know that type, right? So every little person that fits on that type, it will be behaving in a specifically different way, but let's say in a less narrow view, it's all the same patterns. So when the leader has that patterns already undermined and it is lightened, and it is lightened up, meaning the shadow, it was lightened, and that mindset, let's say, or that cognition, it is fixed, then the person can help the other persons go to the next level. So I feel this thought it is true, and I feel it is, and I think it is also beneficial to think like this, because it doesn't mean it is projection that it is necessarily or inherently bad, in my opinion. Okay, so it's like in the specificity and in the details, some things can differ, but the patterns of behavior that we engage are not so different, right? Every goddamn teenager goes to the pattern of behavior of challenging the social limits, right? The social barriers, their superiors, or at least some types of teenager. Like, it's not an uncommon thing. It is like a pattern that we can tend to fall into it, right? So I think that's interesting. That's interesting to explore that narrative and that vision and history. So I think that the shadow must be conscious all the time, even though it is a hard thing to do. Like, it is a really deep work that we should do to know if we are really doing the right thing for the thing we think we are, or if we are doing it for other reasons, right? So I think that's also why we do the sacrifice first, meaning I really do that thing because I'm really doing that thing, and I want that thing to be good. And consequently, the thing my shadow wanted, or my primitive instincts wanted, it will be manifested into my life sooner or later, right? So we can see this in the myth of hero, that sooner or later, at least hopefully, the hero has what he wants, right? And that's the let's say the fame and the power, and the people get what they want. But first, they have to do things outside of them, because really they are doing the thing outside of them and not because of their feelings, right? So we can put in practical example the act of doing a pitch inside a company to feel I am doing a good pitch, to feel good, or because the pitch really fits the needs of the person who is listening to me. Completely different game, right? So if I notice my shadow there, I can see more easily if I am doing that to feel good, or if I'm doing that to the other person listen and to serve their needs, right? And consequently, of course, I will have my needs met, even though that can take some time, putting in a personal perspective. So that's really interesting to know and notice. I hope it makes sense to the person that is watching me. Okay, and it's really interesting because, of course, in my opinion, on this true leader, what I call a true leader, it also identifies the thought patterns that the persons are engaging with, that are around them, and it can convert that into fuel to help them, using, for example, the mirror neurons, right? I was listening to a doctor saying that you should not tell good news before they really happened, because that can trigger envy in other people, and as envy can be contagious, so it can go across your network and consequently prejudicing you. I hope that's the right word. Like, so in the end, it will not benefit you. Tell the good news. Actually, it will hurt you, because one person feels envy, then the other person mirrors the person. So let's say in some sense everybody is mirroring the envy of the other persons, even if they are unconscious and unaware of it. So that can make you hurt, right? Because if you are engaging with a person that is envy of you, well, the person is not going to make you any good, even if the person is not aware of it, right? So what I think a true leader does is to observe that, detect that, and to translate into other words. So make some alchemy in some sense and translate that to a type of cure in the psychological sense, in my opinion, right? Making the right questions and making the right moves towards that person. I believe this is true. And of course, changing the environment. If the environment is of envy, change the goddamn environment to a thing that is more healthy. And the true leader, detect this like in a matter of seconds, in my opinion, right? So it doesn't neglect, neither suppress or repress their impulsive thoughts and emotions that come from the shadow, from our more primitive instincts, right? So as because it doesn't suppress, it accepts us, and he also faces it. So faces the shadow and gets bigger and stronger, and that is a useful thing to know. Because we have compound effect on the things we fight on and then the things that we win on, right? And of course, the opposite can also happen if we are not prepared psychologically for defeat. All right. So I think that's what the true leader does in a sense. So it accepts and notices where some impulses or thoughts are coming from, like this is from me or this is from other person. And it converts that into not judging, but inspiring the other person to be better or making the right questions. So the person gets out of that state and goes to next level of psychological growth. And it serves as the adult in the zone of proximal development, meaning it makes the means of the for the person go from where it is to another level. So let's say we have 3 levels. The level where the person it is. The second level is a level where the person can surpass and conquer, but with help. And the third level it is too much. So if the person is on the first level, it is really on the same spot, and it is not happening any growth. But if it goes to the second layer, well, it will be uncomfortable, but with good guidance, the person can conquer that level, right? And if it goes to the third is too much. So the person can't even conquer that level, even if it help. Doing a parallel to Vygotsky zone of proximal development that is normally associated with kids. So I think that's really useful to know. And to leader, I think this can be theory, but in practical sense, it is also very useful to know this, in my opinion, because if you notice that, well, you certainly will look at your thoughts differently. Not thinking that you are a bad person, that you are X, that you are that. No, that's completely false. There is just forces that are manifesting through your psyche. You are not bad, well, maybe you are bad, right? But let's say if we are doing what I call a technical analysis on ourselves, then it is not necessarily helpful, at least this is my view, to say, I am bad, I am X, I am Y, I am Z, like giving labels. It is better to just observe and have a technical aspect of it, seeing, okay, this is really interesting. This is mine or from outside the world. This makes sense, this doesn't make sense. Why this thought will come up to my mind, right? Or how can I fix this? And sometimes, depending on the phase of life that you are, sometimes just doing exercise, good sleep, and eating healthy, it is enough for some thoughts to go away. It's like brutal, all right? I think that's really useful to know, but just knowing that you are not necessarily your thoughts, and your thoughts can come from outside, like because of the mirror neurons, it is goddamn useful, as you can make that distinction and you will get more accurate on where that thought comes from. I believe on that, and I think it's a good thought to explore and a good idea to also see the world from. And of course, also in my opinion, this is best done when we can access our emotions and feelings, translating them into words. Meaning, I accept the thoughts that I have, even if they are more primitive thoughts like I want to kill, I want to do X, Y, Z, mean things. and I accept them, of course, that I have, and then I find a solution after that. But to access the emotion behind our behavior, and there is no behavior without any emotion, well, it is some hard work that we should put into it, right? But as we get better and better accessing and tapping into emotions and what they are trying to tell us or what they are transmitting us, that, well, maybe I need to be a better father, maybe I should do this differently. Well, maybe it's because of my experience in the past. Well, then it is more easily, in my opinion, to absorb the outside world and, well, translate that into something better and positive. But that takes some long, good years to achieve, in my perspective. But so I think it's really, really interesting to look on through this lens. And just knowing that we can feel bad and be in a bad state, not because of us, but because we absorbed the outside world that we are, meaning the environment that I am, the context that I am, and because of that, maybe I observe the pain of the people that are around me, and maybe that's why I'm feeling bad. Just knowing that, it is wonderful, because that can really happen. I was listening to the Dr. Gabor Mate, a psychiatrist, and he was saying that women are more prone to absorb the pain of the people around them, and well, they will feel bad, they will feel pain, and they can have immunological disease that attacks in itself. And the woman can have chronic pain, chronic stress, and does not know where that is coming from. So that's really interesting to thought on and to think on, really. So that doesn't mean we can read minds, but I think we can. But we can get some approximation of what's happening really in real life. And we can know more precisely if we are observing is from our environment, well, by making questions to the other person. And maybe the other person observed something that from the environment they are, without knowing it, and they brought into your environment where you interact with her, and now you think that she has something, but she just brought something from outside. So that's a really also useful thing to know, and to have on your mind. Okay. So yeah, being aware and conscious of our shadow. If this is a shadow, I'm really doing this because I should do and have to do. Really interesting to know. And that's why projection is also good. It is not necessarily bad. For example, I can project something, and I will, as a leader, in the decision I take. This is right, this is wrong. I transmit that information to people. It is a projection. And people can accept that projection and incorporate that projection into their lives or not. Or they can reject that projection. No, I don't accept that. That is wrong because X, Y, Z. They are rejecting that projection. And even though it has some data and statistics, well, there is always some bias and some projection that is from the inside of what's good, what's bad, right? I'm not talking about consciousness. I'm talking about, let's say, I'm not talking about consciousness, but I'm talking about conscious things that we think we are bad or wrong, and that will differentiate across cultures and across groups of what we think it is good or bad to do. So that's also a useful thing to know, that everything, at least I think this is a good idea, everything, it is a projection, and we accept some projections and we share that projection collectively, and other projections, well, we just refuse, we just neglect it, right? And sociologically, this is beautifully. It is like ideas. Somebody has an idea, and I can convert you to my idea, to my projection of the world, and you can continue and propagate that idea, or maybe not. So now I'm going to read the text from Isabel Fernandes. I'm going to read it and translate it in real time. The shadow, according to the vision of Carl Jung, represents the dark and suppressed part of our personality that is made out of impulses, wishes, and qualities that we neglect or we don't know in ourselves. It is like if it is a hidden face of an iceberg, having aspects that, for being considered socially unacceptable or morally questionable, we then put that into our unconscious. So we can even do this unconsciously, like suppressing and neglecting certain thoughts because it is not socially approved, and we share our thoughts with other people, right? So we can have this mechanism of suppressing thoughts without not knowing, because, well, we are social people. We are going to share our thoughts, what we think, what we don't think, right? So this can happen really, really, really easily. So we should not neglect that we have darker parts, because we definitely are. Everybody has. I was listening to Jordan Peterson saying that after he visited a prison, during several days, I believe, he went to that and thought into himself, how can I think like the persons that I encountered in the prison? So he was trying to enter on that state, like when we watch a movie, that we are thinking like the hero. Oh, I have to save that. I have to save that. And he said in 10 days he could enter on, let's say, a mode of being that it was aligned with that psychopath that he encountered in jail. And we know this, right? We can go historically. We can go into a path that is simply wrong, of making bad decisions because we are killing or other people without not knowing it, without thinking it is the right thing to do. So it is really interesting. And with mirror neurons, and as we read stories, we can enter a little bit, and if you allow, we can go more deeply on how that kind of person thinks and acts. So this is amazing to think that, to think and notice that we can have bad thoughts, that maybe our intentions are not so good as we think they are. And the question to question that, really looking at the verbal, the non-verbal, I think that it is all good variables to decipher and to analyze. So let's continue. When we try to look at our own shadow, we face with tendencies and behaviors that we prefer to not recognize, like selfishness, envy, anger, or laziness. But, ironically, these same qualities are easily perceived in others through the psychological mechanism known as projection. A projection occurs when we attribute to others characteristics that we do not accept in ourselves. Okay? This is a traditional sense, but we have a more sophisticated sense. That was the one that presented previously. I can project in other something that I have inside me, and that can be good. Well, it is a different way to look at projection. For example, a person that it considers itself very patient, a patient person, can project its impatiently, I hope I'm saying right, in other persons, criticizing them for being anxious in a too much way. Or someone that suppresses their aggressive impulses can accuse others of being violent. This dynamic of projection, it is common in our interpersonal relationships and in social contexts, more broader, like politics, where mutual accusations are frequent. The shadow doesn't manifest only in thoughts and feelings, but also in impulsive actions and unconscious actions and impulsives. Lots of times we act in a way that is contrary or opposite to our values. Impulses by forces that we can't control. It's like if the shadow, being suppressed, was looking for an exit, manifesting itself in an unexpected way. The shadow does not only consist in omissions, It presents itself like an impulsive act or inadvertent act. Before it is time to think, explodes the badful observation. We make the bad action, we take the wrong decision, and we confront ourselves with a situation that we were not wanting to create consciously. It's important to note that the shadow is not exclusively negative. It can contain also positive aspects that were suppressed by fear or because they don't fit in the ideal perfection. Integrating the shadow, meaning to recognize and accept these aspects of ourselves, we can become more complex. We can be more like a whole and authentic. The shadow is an intrinsic part of the human psyche that, when neglected, can take into internal conflicts and interpersonal relationships that are problematic. To understand and integrate the shadow, we can release ourselves from judgments and self-critics, promoting a personal growth more profound and significant. Besides that, the shadow exposes a lot more than just the conscious personality. The shadow also makes the person be exposed to collective contagions. The man that is alone, for example, the man that is alone, finds himself relatively well. But as soon as he sees the others behaving in a more primitive and badly way, it starts to have fear of the others judging them, considering him a fool if he doesn't make the same. So it renders to the impulses that in truly does not belong to him. When the person observes in others their own tendencies and unconscious tendencies, they are making what we call projection. The politic agitations in all countries are full of projections, just like the individual fights and of small groups. Projections of every species fool the vision of the other and destroying the objective world. They destroy any possibility of a truly human relationship that it is authentic. If the figure of the shadow has vital forces and positive forces, we should assimilate them on our active experience and not suppress them. We can say that the shadow has two aspects, one that is bad and other that is beneficial. For example, we can think in the case of a person that is extremely introverted and timid. The shadow of that person can contain a strong will of expressing himself and to be seen and heard to. That will of communicating, of connecting to the others, is a positive aspect in the shadow. But the fear of judgment and insecurity can take that person to suppress that more extroverted side of itself. Negative aspect. I have to look up the meaning of these words. Sorry, let me check. The excessive shyness, that's the word. When I was saying timid, it is really shyness. Okay. Excessive shyness can take to the social isolation and to a difficulty of building relationships, the difficulty in building relationships and to low self-esteem. The person can feel inferior and incapable of achieving their own results. Positive aspect. The will of communicating and to connect with others can impulsionate the person to look to new experiences, and to develop their social abilities and to find their own voice. To recognize and accept this suppressed will of communicating, the person can start to work in their own insecurities and to develop their self-esteem. Gradually, it can allow himself to go out of their zone of comfort and to connect with other persons in a more authentic way. Citation to Carl Jung, page 133 of the book that we are reading. It is going to depend a lot on ourselves to the shadow become friend or enemy. End of the first text. Second text, citation to an article. Based on the article, see the history in your life as a hero journey. It increases the meaning of life. Benjamin A. Rogers et al. I'm going to let the reference soon in the description. The meaning of life, it is connected to the histories that the persons tell about their lives. And a temporal history, the journey of the hero, it can take the life of the person more significant. The hero journey, it has 7 key elements: the protagonist, the change, the mission, the allies, the challenges, transformation, and the legacy. And so it can develop into a new measure that measures the perceived presence of the narrative in the journey of hero in the history of the life of the persons. Taking the persons to reflect about important elements in their lives and connecting them to a narrative that is coherent and convincing. Why the hero journey it is important? Because it emerges out of the search for a more meaningful life, a life that it matters, that has purpose. Dynamism and the uncertainty of the modernity make a challenge for people to find their more profound meaning in their lives. Traditional forms of meaning like religion, communitary ties, and social confidence are more and more weakening. The narratives can give us a path to a new positive meaning. Because persons, lots of times, they go into histories, especially the ones about heroes, in search for inspiring orientation and models of how to act in their own lives. Following the journey of hero, they can find easily more meaning in their lives. Because of a fundamental fact, the minds of people are made up of narratives, combining the fundamental human capacities of language, social thought, and conscious reflection. The narratives are the ways that we can make the world more coherent and to transmit knowledge to others. For example, the lawyers transform evidence in stories of guilt or innocence. And the professionals of marketing, they make advertisements that transform their products in expressions of identity. You can wait for the persons tell their life more coherently, their story if possible. But lots of times that doesn't happen. Some healthy and mature and productive adults, like those with a strong compromise of helping the future generations, they tend to tell in a way that is coherent their edificant narrative centered on the growth and on redemption. But those who are depressed or traumatized lots of times build narratives that show stagnant trajectories, descending or interrupt, that emphasize the lack of meaning and connection. Clearly, there is some connection between the feeling of meaning in persons and the narratives that they build around their lives. And ending the journey of the hero, it is a meaningful life. The heroes, they put some effort in epic missions. The sense of purpose, it is a central component in the meaning of life. Heroes have allies. Heroes win challenges and they are transformed through their efforts. The persons counter meaning when they persist and grow from their challenges. In the end of their trips, heroes, they focus in using their gifts to benefit society, help and give others. It gives to a bigger meaning. So these were the texts from Rizal Fernandes, and my thoughts on this were made at the beginning. I think this is really good to think about it, to reflect about it, and see this on our lives, on the people around you, especially when we are on a more sophisticated side of things, meaning when we are our life, maybe with some time to reflect. Because if we don't even have physical exercise in the day, we are not sleeping well, or we are not eating healthy, well, it will be definitely more challenging to address some of these things and to detect them into our lives or in our social convies, let's say. I hope that's right. On our social interactions, and that makes huge difference, right? I remember interacting with a person that was in completely depression, that was diagnosed by a psychologist, and he told me that, in his words, just doing physical exercise, eating healthy and sleeping properly, it was 50% on their recovery, or even more, maybe even more. And he left. He was diagnosed with depression, but then left because he couldn't understand the psychologist, because it was a French psychologist and he was Portuguese, so the language was a barrier. So we continue to surpass that condition on their own. And also, I encountered a second streamer from Portugal that she said that the moments that she could control better their thoughts and their impulses was when she was eating healthy, doing exercise, and sleeping better. So it is amazing. And then, of course, when we have those bases truly align, I think it is more interesting to put more time into these more complex and interesting aspects of life. Until then, well, just putting yourselves with good habits, it is a tremendous help. Because this is more sophisticated knowledge, in my opinion, right? Even though, of course, it is good to have one eye on this and think whenever you can and what we can on this more complex knowledge. That is inspired from Carl Jung, and I think it is, and they are some really good ideas inspired by them and on them. So yeah, that's it for today. Thank you so much. If you want to become a member, please enter on Patreon, become a member, or become a thinker. I'm looking for thinkers that can talk and understand English, so you can embark on the journey with me. We have a very long vision for the club to make physical events, so come grow with us. If you're a thinker, you want to study more by your own, if you're a psychology student, philosopher, please embark on this journey and let's grow together and explore our intellect, the world of knowledge, and expand our frontiers of ideas, and also to help other people getting better and educate them, because this is also education, in my opinion. So we can take better decisions, we are more consciousness of things, so we can have a better life and a better life for the world. So thank you, that's all for today, and bye-bye. See you in 15 days. Thank you.